My life in LA at age 20, early 20s. My life in LA. Stories from my life. Grandma's porch. Sit down, relax, enjoy. Here on Grandma's porch. My life in LA. Stories from my life. Reflections in the rear view mirror of my life. Reflections of a well-lived life. Reflections of a well-lived life. Hello, y'all. I'm Dianna Brianne. Well, as y'all know, I've been sharing little bits and pieces, little snippets from my life, not in chronological order, but just kind of as they come to me. And, I've really enjoyed that, coming up for air from the heavier topics and being lighter. And I thought, what better way to do it than to share my stories? Many of them I've already shared in the past. Some I'm giving more details to them. Some are brand new. And some you can just go back a year ago and look for all my stories that I used to tell from my life. So if not, maybe I'll repeat some of them as I have been. And the one today is about Los Angeles. And now remember, I don't give advice, suggestions, information, or recommendations. I just share with you my perspective on different topics. And if you haven't liked, shared, subscribed to all 5 of my channels, I hope you do so. I put different content on different channels, and the links are pinned to the top of the comment section below. And if you connect with me, I will likely connect with you as well. So this is LA. Okay, and there's so much to LA. I have to kind of probably put it in bits and pieces of different stories because it could take me forever to talk about my LA years. When I had left a small southern like town, a few years before that. I went to California, moved to California, and that's a whole other videos in itself. And I think I did make videos on that when my mom and I left, and we drove across country in her big, I think it was 75, brand new 75. Pontiac Le Mans, and there was a big white one, and away we took off across the country and not knowing really where we were going. And we ended up in California where we had some relatives. And so I got to really thinking about that, and I got to thinking about my LA days. As you all know, in another videos, I talked about how I went to nursing school and how that unfolded and how that came about and all of that. And once I was out there, I had been in college prior to California. I had been at a university. And I was off on like summer break, I think, summer semester. And so we took off and we ended up in California, and I ended up in a little apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment, which had a swimming pool, and all that was just like, oh my gosh, I'm living like a movie star after coming out of a small town, And we were kind of near my relatives, and so that kind of made it nice. My mom did not plan on staying out there, but I did, because I was looking for a job. I think I got a job as a waitress, and my first job out there was like as a secretary, and for this auto company, auto appraisal or auto fixing company type of thing. So, I was very young. I was still 19. I was 19 years old and living in California. And I lived on my own when I was about 17, after I graduated high school and got my first apartment, which I already did a video on that, a couple of videos called My First Apartment, or the Angel in the Trench Coat. I think that was called The Angel in the Trench Coat. And so anyhow, we settled in out, it was a beach area. It was a beach town, and about 45 minutes from downtown LA. And after I graduated nursing school, I was around 20 years old, and I went to work at a little tiny beach community type hospital. And it was fine. It was a great starting point, but to me, it was not someplace I wanted to stay long term. And I did stay about a year or two, or maybe even 3. I don't know, somewhere in there. But I didn't stay real long. I mean, I wasn't like going to be a long-term thing because there really wasn't much opportunity for a young person there. Maybe an older nurse, it would have been fine. You have to realize the seasons of your life that you're in. But it was a good starting point because I learned a lot there. I learned how to get my feet wet as a nurse and everything like that. And I've had many careers in my life beyond nursing. So nursing it was more of a starting point career for me, an amazing career. I so respect nurses. Nurses are amazing, amazing for what they do. They are really, really amazing. So I knew I wanted more. And I remember in nursing school, there was a instructor, and she said, Dianna, you belong at this one particular very well-known hospital, and she named the name, and it's in the Beverly Hills area, and you would be perfect for that. And I'd never been there, never seen it, didn't know where it was, but I remember that sticking in my mind. We didn't have internet back then, but somehow I got the telephone number, called there, asked him if I could come put an application in. And by then I had, gotten rid of my little old car and got a new car, but it didn't have air conditioning. Back then you got to choose between a radio or air conditioning, and I wanted a radio. I think I would have chose the air conditioning instead. But nonetheless, I drove to LA. I got lost. I had to walk a long ways. This hospital was huge, huge, huge. And I put my application in, and I ended up getting hired. And so I kind of didn't quit the other hospital right away. I kind of just reduced my days down to like 1 day a week, or maybe nothing. I don't know. I don't remember. But then I quit later because I wanted to be full-time at the other hospital. And so in that period of time, I moved to another apartment closer to the beach, right, almost, really close to the beach, and it was a really beautiful little apartment. And so I was traveling from the beach town to LA, or to Beverly Hills area, and I was traveling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. A lot of driving in there, especially without air conditioning. And but it was wonderful. It was amazing. And I went there and I asked if I could work on a specialty floor. There was a specialty floor where I would meet a lot of interesting people as I was working. And so I did. I met a lot of interesting people that ended up really giving me opportunity along the way to, they opened doors for me. They really did. But nonetheless, I met what I call a young doctor in love, and that was kind of somebody I fell madly in love with in the very beginning. And he was probably 3 years older than me, and a young intern, what they call interns or residents back then, very handsome. And, I was madly in love. And did I, go with other people? Absolutely. I went with other people. But as friends, because when you're committed to somebody, or in your heart you're committed, you don't want to, break that commitment. And so I would date other friends, and I met a lot of very well-known and famous people, and I'm not going to give names or anything like that. I don't do that. But, and I got invited to some very famous places that you would all recognize. And so, I was a young nurse, and being a great nurse. I was a great nurse. I was wonderful. I was compassionate. I was professional in every sense. And yet when I was off duty, I was able to go have fun like a normal person would in their 20s, or, the age that I was. And I did. So I kind of got to know the LA lifestyle. And, I didn't drink. I didn't do any of that stuff. And so, because Grandma taught me better, she said, you don't do none of that stuff. So I stayed away from all the bad stuff, and I just got the good stuff. And I was able to work on, different TV shows, very small parts, but, different TV shows at that time. I really didn't have any talent, but the people that I was meeting was able to connect me to the right places so that I could work on these shows. All shows, if back then in the early 80s, you would all recognize big shows. And of course they were itty bitty parts, because I didn't have the talent to back me up to go, audition for like a real part, And so, it was just so cool to have all of those experiences, to be able to work on TV shows and actually, because you have to remember, I was from a small town. I was from a small area, and we had grown up really poor, and a dream like that, to live in LA, to work around amazing professional people and be in a professional environment and do a great professional job in a great professional place, and all of that was just amazing to me. And then to meet, the icing on the cake, to meet all these other people that opened up doors and opportunities for me. It was really, really an incredible time. And to also, when you're in love, it can be an amazing experience on top of that. When you're in love with somebody, that heart-pounding love, And I don't really want to go into a lot of detail about that relationship because I've already kind of spoken and talked about it in other videos. And more as I get older, I realize that sometimes details are not important. And, but I believe that people come into your life for a season, a reason, sometimes a lifetime. It just all depends. And the men that I did date prior to my marriage, they all had a profound impact upon my life if they were a significant person who touched my heart. And so I would say that I was very young, and doctors were, I wanted, my whole goal was to, be in love with a doctor, and a young doctor, and a gorgeous doctor, and a smart doctor. And so I really got all that. I was able to get that in my life. And so, like I said, without all the details and all that, when you're young, you think, you're into romance. Well, as you're old too, you're into romance. And so my wonderful LA days of meeting a lot of different, very famous people, I could be out and about. I want to tell you a little story. When I first got to California, and I was only 19, along the trip, somehow my mom and I met this man, and he was, I guess, a rich man driving across country. And we were like, I don't know, Kansas or someplace, driving through Oklahoma, someplace. And he gave us his number to reach him when we got there. And when we got there, my mom called him for some reason. And he invited, my mom had to leave, but he invited me to dinner in Beverly Hills. And he took me to a very, very famous hotel. And remember, I was 19 and he was a great deal older, so there was nothing going on there. But he invited me. And he took me first of all, while we're sitting there, we're sitting at this very famous place, and it's in Beverly Hills, and out on a lounge area, and I'm having iced tea and something to eat. And I remember there was a famous movie star that I wanted to meet, and I said out loud, I want to be sitting in the living room of this famous movie star having iced tea. And within 3 months, it was a very short time, I was sitting in that living room of that famous movie star having iced tea. And that's a whole nother story. And, but anyhow, backtracking, I was 19. And so he took me to Rodeo Drive, just like Pretty Woman, like the scene out of Pretty Woman. And he bought me all these clothes from Rodeo Drive. And I went, I was just amazed, Never saw him again after that, but it was amazing. I felt like Ellie Mae Clampett in Hollywood. And so, yes, in my life, I've been very fortunate. I've been married for, around 30 years to the love of my life. I've had that love, that true love that we talk about. And yet, prior to my true love, I had relationships where I was in love. They weren't right for the long haul, but they were right for the short term. They taught me a great deal. And many of those relationships came out of my LA period. Some were friendships and some were romantic. And so, and a lot of fun, a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun in my LA days. And then there came a time, and, you know, I'm kind of summing up the whole many years because there was a lot to, you know, a lot of detail, wonderful details in those years. And yet I chose to leave LA after a number of years. And that I told, I think I went to Texas. I don't know if I told it on my which social media page, because I've been sharing stories. So I probably have made this video before, like a year ago. But I left there and I said, bon voyage. All in a positive way. Remember, always leave on a great note. And actually, I went back briefly for a little bit later on while I was making all of the transitions in my life. And I ended up going to Texas and to New York, and then I ended up in Palm Springs, and then back, did for a little bit at that particular job in LA, and then I went on to other jobs. But it was a wonderful, wonderful period of my life, and just something that I will always remember and keep in my heart, and the people that I met along the way, along life's journey. And so I sum this story up in a different way than I've told before, because I've told more details in separate stories, you know, and I just, you know, sometimes as you get older, the details are not so important as the overall experience. And that was one part of my life. And I've had a lot of different chapters and different stories and different places and different people in my life, all of which touched my life in a different sort of way and has brought me to where my life is today. And, you know, it's like when I look back on the last around 30 years with my husband, that seems like that's been the only life I've led. But I remember now I had a life prior, and that all led up to me meeting my husband. I believe that people like my husband comes into your life at the right time in your life, when you're ready, or, you know, each person plays a role to get us to the next point in life. So I wanted to come on here and share another little another little snippet from my life, and I hope you enjoyed. And so may God bless you. And so from my house to yours, may God bless you. I hope you like, share, subscribe to all 5 of my channels, links pinned at the top of the comment section below. And I hope to talk to you soon again. Bye-bye. Porch, a place to relax.